Just to make sure it's all squared away and good. And
Yes, sir.
we should be live. All right, cool. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here today on this, what is this, June 8th, 2025, as some call it. And yeah, we're going to jump into a conversation that I'm really excited about. This has been something that has had my attention for a couple years now. And just recently, it's sort of exploded in a whole big, beautiful way. And I'm excited to jump into this with my dear brother Gabriel, who we're just meeting again in this lifetime, but I have no doubt that this is not the first. So yeah, excited to
Certainly.
jump into this and yeah, thanks for being here, Gabriel. Really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man and so yeah, just appreciate you for taking the time to jump in.
This is what my time is for, brother. This is what my life is for. This is my joy. So this is an honor and a pleasure to be here. And hi, everybody who's watching, past, present, future, or yeah, whatever timeline.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, hated the ether. Yeah, so the topic of today's discussion is around the Ringing Cedars of Russia, which is a series that I've read and looked through and just have so much alignment with everything that is talked about within the series. It does such a beautiful job at showing this awakening process, stepping away from the old world of decay and corruption and all of that, and really stepping back into that which is natural and reclaiming our sovereignty, reclaiming our connection with this earth, and truly manifesting a heaven on earth space. So the reason I got in touch with Gabriel is because he's been heavily involved with this series and sort of helping to disseminate this message and to help get people connected in every which way that we can. Because the more that we connect with those who are aligned with following this way, the better we can help and share and spread this message to everyone on earth. So I really appreciate your
Mhm.
work in that. So I wanted to start out first with just asking because I'm sure you've gotten pretty good at it, explaining and giving a little nutshell. So, what is the Ringing Cedars of Russia to someone who's never heard of this series before?
Yeah, so you saw me holding up this book here. This is the first book in the series, Anastasia. There is 10 books. Nine of them are in print. One of them is in PDF. If you want all the books, you can get them anastasia.foundation/books. All the PDFs are free. We make them available free. If you want physical copies, go to ringingcedarsbooks.com. We sell them. We only have three of them, but we sell them and it supports our nonprofit. So if you're curious about the books at any point, find that. But what are the books? Okay, yeah, I've tried my best to get good at explaining it, so we'll dive into it. So the books are, they were written by an author named Vladimir Megre in Russia, and they were published in the late 90s, early 2000s. The first nine books were published, and then a 10th book was published in 2010. So the books have sold roughly 30 million copies worldwide in, I believe it's like 30-ish languages. It might be like 28 or like 32 languages. I have to check exactly, but it's one of those numbers somewhere there. At least bare minimum 700,000 new copies in English, but I think that number is very old. So it's probably more like a million, 1.5, 2 million plus the used book market. Pretty decent amount of readership in English internationally. So what are these books about, right? Like what is the reason, what is the compelling reason to listen to any of this? Why is this interesting? So in the first book here, in 1994, Vladimir, he was an entrepreneur. And what he did was he took a trade caravan of ships up the Ob River in northern Siberia. So to very remote villages where nobody lives, and he was trading goods and services and things like that from the city and the rest of Russia with these village people and exchanging things with them all up and down the river. So on one of these trips, he meets these two very unusual, very interesting elderly gentlemen, and they come up to him and they start telling him about a tree that they call the ringing cedar, right? And they basically they explain a lot of really interesting things to him. It's only on like the sixth page of the book, but they're saying that the cedar, the Siberian cedar in particular, lives to be 550 years old. During its lifetime, it accumulates all of this cosmic energy from the sun, the moon, the stars, and holds it within itself. And its destined purpose is to give that energy back to humanity when humanity needs that energy and there isn't enough. And they're basically saying if this tree isn't cut down at this point in its life cycle, it's going to begin to burn up and die internally because it can't give its energy back. And why it's called the ringing cedar in particular is that it's stored up so much energy at this point in its life that it gives off an audible sound. If you put your ear up to it, it'll sound like a high voltage electric power line or something like this. And so these two elders asked Vladimir, can you send a crew of people to cut down this tree and make pieces of these pendants and give them to people, right? And Vladimir declines the offer. They give him a piece of the ringing cedar. Well, they give one of his crewmates a piece of the ringing cedar, and he leaves, right? But he's very, very curious about what they just told him and all these things. So he goes back to Moscow and he starts doing this incredible research into the cedar, especially in Russian tradition and folklore. And he searches the Bible and all these things, and he finds a tremendous amount of information, significance surrounding the cedar. So his interest is very piqued, and he decides to return to the same village to seek out these old men and find the cedar. So when he does return, probably like a year later, what happens is he doesn't meet the old men, but he meets their granddaughter. She's a young woman named Anastasia, the name of the books, right, or the name of the first book. He meets Anastasia, and he's very surprised because he's never met her, but she knows his name. But he also never told his name to the old men, but she knows his name. So she greets him and she tells him the two elderly men you met here were my grandfathers, and I can tell you everything you want to know about the ringing cedar, and I can come show, I can take you to see it. And he takes her up on the offer. It's an incredibly long hike into the Siberian taiga, and he is not sufficiently prepared for it, but he does it anyway. And basically, she takes him deep into the forest, and that's how the story unfolds. And so he takes her back, she takes him to this glade where her family has been living for centuries. He spends 3 days with her, and she tells him about all kind of things. I mean, the books encompass every subject of life that you could imagine, right? Like man's relationship with God, our destined purpose and function, the true purpose of our, connection with nature and how to actualize that, how to preserve love in families forever, and how to take this energy of love and make sure it never vanishes, how to raise children that are in the image and likeness of God and more perfect than ourselves, how to turn this earth into a flourishing paradise, right? Every subject you could possibly imagine. Those are some of the higher level ones. And so he spends 3 days with her. He has some incredible experiences. And let me tell you just a little bit about her. So this is actually written by Vladimir, who is Anastasia, and something about her. He says, Anastasia lives in the forest altogether alone. She has no house to call her own. She hardly wears any clothes and does not store any provisions. She is the descendant of people who've been living here for thousands of years and represents what is literally a whole different civilization. She and those like her have survived to the present day through what I can only term the wisest possible decisions. Anastasia was born here and is an integral part of the natural surroundings. She did not go off into the forest simply for a time, as they, and he's referring to like Buddha, Jesus, Moses, did. People going off temporarily to find enlightenment. She grew up there her whole life, right? She was born in the taiga and visits our world for only brief periods. Anastasia has one extraordinary ability. When she's telling a story about something, pictures of the events she's narrating arise in the listener's consciousness or in actual space as like a hologram. The images are three-dimensional, complete with the smells and sounds of the time she's describing. Anastasia has shown me pictures from the lives of people of a variety of periods, starting from the very creation of the world. Nearly all of the events are connected with her ancestors. If you were to try to characterize her capabilities in one phrase, here's what you could say. Anastasia preserves the experiences and emotions of the members of her extended family, starting with the creation of the very first human in her genetic memory, and she's able to call them up at will. She can also model pictures from the lives of people in the future. So he has these profound experiences with her. He sees all these abilities that she has, and she has preserved these abilities and because her lifestyle and her culture and the way that she grew up in, right? And this culture has preserved these capabilities within her. She keeps saying the whole time, I am man, right? I am not, I'm a woman like you. I'm not like a deity or something. So, last thing I'll say, just to sum this up here, he has these profound experiences with her. She asks him to write a book about it, right? And, eventually it becomes a bunch of books. But she says, in the book you're going to write, there will be unobtrusive combinations, formulations made up of letters, and they will arouse in the majority of people good and radiant feelings, capable of overcoming ailments of body and soul, and will facilitate the birth of a new awareness inherent in the people of the future. Believe me, Vladimir, this is not mysticism. It is in accord with the laws of the universe. And that's exactly what happens. The words and the combinations of words that she says in the books are so powerful and stirring and compelling to the soul that when people read the books, they have, their life can do a complete 180. Their consciousness can do a complete 180. And people have, I mean, I've literally seen it. People will get like healed of things or, mental, emotional, spiritual things, physical things will go away. They'll become very bright and inspired and want to take action towards what they heard in the books. And that's why the books have sold so many copies. They sold millions and millions of copies with no money spent on advertising, just from word of mouth, just because people were so compelled by the vision and the ideas set forth. So Vladimir has these experiences. He returns a few more times to see Anastasia. He writes about all of this over the course of many years and all these experiences with her. And one last thing I'll say that she says in the first book, he asks her, "What do you think awaits our civilization?" And Justin, this is like exactly what you were saying in the beginning. She says, "In the long term, a realization of the futility of the technocratic path of development and a movement back to our pristine origins." So that's what the entire overarching idea is, and that's my attempt at summarizing it. But if any of this piques your interest, dear listener, uh, I highly suggest that you go check out the books yourself because it's a lot more than what I'm saying.
Well, you did a phenomenal job. That was an incredible encapsulation of this profound series. What I love about it and what drew me in so much was it's a modern day representation of a interactions with a Christic being, someone who has recognized this one path, this one way that permeates through all whether you view it from a religious perspective or a spiritual perspective, it's all getting us back to who we truly are. We've fallen into this veil of forgetfulness to forget all our abilities and our connections with everything around. And this is through this rediscovery process that we strengthen ourselves and we learn and grow through that. But the way that Anastasia breaks it all down, and what I love so much about it is it's extremely practical. A lot of the
Mm.
representations that we have within other religions of these, what I truly believe have been Christic figures who have come to share the same message. A lot of what we have left are the more confusing allegories, the things that are more veiled and harder to parse through, and whether that was intentional to give us this distorted view of it or not, it doesn't really matter. That's what we have to work with. But here it
Hmm.
comes this series with an extremely practical step-by-step guide on here's how you can do this. Here's how you can really take steps now within your life to shift things in simple, easy ways. And then have these long-term visions of moving back to the simplicity of communing with our earthly mother and coalescing with all the gifts that she has to provide, stepping into our true essence and emanating that light, which is what all of these beautiful beings were attempting to teach and share. So I love this
Mm.
series very much, and I really do love the way that you described it. So yeah, I'd echo the encouragement for anyone who, if you resonate with any of the words that have just been spoken, definitely check out this series, and you will be very happy that you did. I actually have the
Mm.
gift that Gabriel gave
Ah,
me. Speaking of the ringing cedars, so this is a cedar
Siberian cedar.
yeah, Siberian cedar
That's from
peat.
a branch.
Yeah, and you can see on it, it's got these beautiful colors within it. And so just
It's an
the
old tree. A lot of
yeah,
rings in that just little branch right there.
yeah, exactly. So just the embodiment of the ringing cedar and how that shows us. I mean, as you were describing as this sort of divine battery that's continuously charging. It's receiving all that divine energy and it's storing it up for us to receive. And so what better example than for us to become that same divine battery, to reach our limbs up wide and receive that divine energy that's continuously all around us, so that we can share it with others, so that we can ring and hum and sing and share through all the good works and good ways that same influence, because it's there all around us. So what a great example they do provide. So again, just
Mm.
thank you for that. And yeah,
Oh yeah.
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 Oh, go ahead.
You know,
Sorry.
as you're saying there, like that was the thing you talked about the traditions and things of the world that we're left with these kind of occult, mysterious, hard to decipher things. And that's kind of like what we have to work with, as you were saying. And that's exactly what drew me so strongly to the series because when I found them, I was the ripe young age of 19 years old when I found the books. And I had already been on my search for truth. And that exact thing of what you described of finding these obscure things or these occult things or these things that maybe make some kind of sense, but then they don't, and I don't get it, and it's very mystical, and everybody's got this aura of being super mystical and detached and everything. Like I had read all these different religious texts from all different cultures around the world, and I still wasn't satisfied with what I'd found. I was searching for, the meaning of life and where to apply my energy and what to do with my life and all of these things and what is life for? Like really, really searching as deep as I could. When I found the first book, it just immediately like opened the floodgates for me. It was everything in here is so clear. Everything in here is so there's no dogma, there's no distortion, there's no mysticism, there's no like air of mystical superiority. Anastasia comes across as the kindest, most open, sharing, sisterly, motherly, like loving presence that you could possibly imagine. Powerful, intelligent, wise, and it's like, but all completely open. And everything she shares is so appealing to the heart and the soul. And I remember like holding the book and just looking at it and being like, I can't believe I found so much clear, undistorted truth. I was like, this is so precious to me. It's all here, right? It's like, oh my God, I hit the jackpot. I can't believe it exists. I've been searching, right? And I'm like, wow, what an incredible thing. And so that's what really compelled me to want to do what I'm doing now, which is like connect readers and spread this as much as I could. I realized if I read these books and the vision of life was so happy that I would feel really guilty if I was that happy alone for the rest of my life. So I was like, I need to connect people and do something about this. So that's where my passion began. But it's just, and that's what I was saying. It's like that's why the book sold so much. It's so clear, it's so open. And that's what I love about it. It's everything she says is so appealing to your rationality, to your heart, to your soul. And that's what makes people like light on fire. You see, like they read the books and that's a turning point in their life. They become a much brighter and happier and more beautiful version of themselves, right? Like a more actualized version of themselves. Just reading the books alone gives you this giant consciousness change. And I've thought about this really deeply because I'm actually a student of, meditation. I've been meditating a long time. And I'm like, there's things I could meditate lifetimes, and not get the information and understanding that's in these books. You know what I mean? I'm like, there's stuff that's articulated in these books and the way it's said and some depth of information that like it would never come to me. And I'm like, I realize that. And I'm not gonna talk about the experiences I've had in meditation, but I was like, wow, thank you for having this. You know what I mean? And everything, all the steps that she talks about how to make this world more beautiful. And like like you're saying is very practical, right? Like I'm talking about paradise. I'm talking about eternal love in families. And some of these concepts might sound grand and unreachable or utopian, but they're really not. And it's like they're also aspects of life that are immediately affecting us. Like if I'm talking about paradise on earth, The inverse of that is like what we have now, which is the technocratic system, which keeps destroying the world and turning it into the opposite of paradise, which we're grappling with every day of our existence because we go and breathe that dirty air and drink that dirty water and live in these crime infested, worlds. So it's like we're dealing with this anyway. We're dealing with all this like love vanishing between people and families falling apart. And all these ideas are like very real. And there are real, clear solutions in the books to all of these things. And it's not idealistic. It's been happening at scale almost as long as I've been alive. And it's just all there. There's a million things we could get into, Justin, but I will let you lead the way through this, and I will go wherever you want me to go.
Well, feel free to dive into any topic more specifically if one calls to you. I love the just the flow of how that goes, but beautifully said. And I really loved how you touched on her relatability and consistent because it's very similar to like Yeshua and the disciples, right? Vladimir kind
Hmm.
of plays this contrasting role of not quite getting it at times and asking the questions that we might be asking.
Yeah.
So it's very helpful to have that contrasting back and forth between these two beings. But the ways that she continuously is striking down any semblance of trying to glorify or worship or any of that kind of stuff, and actually pointing out how that wasn't the message of these ascended masters to come and try and put themselves on a pedestal. This is something to where we all have to embody this, not worship it. It's
Mm.
not some far off, distant, unattainable thing that we can never reach. It's something that can shift right here, right now. It changes the
Mm.
moment you decide to, uh, you know, put on a smile and make eye contact with the lady at the cash register and ask her how her day
Yeah.
is going and spread that light and spread that energy. It doesn't have to be this far off, unattainable thing that you have to meditate for years on top of the mountain or pray or give all this money to this church or whatever. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be this way. Now, I'm not knocking certain practices, and they can certainly be helpful, but
Yep.
to come back to the base of like, how can we practically do this each and every day, wherever I am, whatever my circumstances are, which is what she gives so well.
Hmm.
So yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
bringing that up.
No, I love what you're saying here. And I think she says this in the first book. I'm paraphrasing, but it's pretty close to what she said. She says, if you can't make the people around you, feel love and feel happy, right? If you can't make those that you call your loved ones, your friends and your family feel loved and feel happy, then your spirituality is a pseudo spirituality, right? And I just love how she just calls things out so directly because it's like I could meditate, I could wear all the flowy pants and some sacred geometry shirts, and I could be a huge jerk too. You know what I mean? And like everyone in my family hates me, and I have no friends, and no one likes being around me, right? But then it's also I could be completely the opposite, not present myself as anything outwardly, and everyone and they appreciate my presence and they feel love when they're with me and all of these things. And it's right, like I can emanate love and genuine kindness and concern for people. And, she just, one thing she's expert at, and Justin, you'll probably feel me on this, is just like blasting out all of these illusions, just like straight up, like sniper blasting out all of these illusions one by one, just picking everything off of like what we think is real or, or not, or spiritual or not. Right. And like, even talking about spirituality, like one of the ideas of the series, and this will be a great thing to get into, is, what is even spirituality, right? Because one of the ideas that's discussed is that we talk a lot about spirituality and we say that we're spiritual people, but like, how does that manifest in the world? Right. And like, how does anything even get changed? And then really, we say we believe in God and we love God and we're so spiritual and wise, yet we are constantly destroying God's creations, right? We are constantly destroying the gifts of the very being whom we say that we love, right? Like the trees and the water and the air and everything. She says in the first book that God is the interplanetary mind, and half of him is in the unseen universe spread throughout the whole universe, and half of him is visible as matter, right? And all of the materialized, the planets and the stars, the sun and the moon and the trees and the water and all that it's his thoughts materialized. It's literally like his body, right? God's body is nature. And we're literally, assaulting him when we destroy it, right? And so these are things that are worth considering, right? And so talking about spirituality, it's like, how do our lifestyles actually affect the planet and life and everything growing around us? And so one of the main ideas of the books is something called a kins domain. And Justin, I don't know, are we on video? Can I share images or anything
Oh
like
yeah.
that?
Yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
yeah.
Let me give
Okay.
you
Cool.
co-host ability, and then you should be able to share anything. Yeah, I would love it
This
if you
can
did.
make it a lot better, easier for people to understand. Okay. Bear with me, guys. Give me one moment. I'm on Linux. Sometimes it's a little crazy here. Share. I need to turn my camera off because if I share, my 4K camera will crash
Oh,
and
nice.
overload my system. Okay. Here is my presentation. Um, so what is let me say, I'll preface this with one little statement that she says. Um, she says, the most important thing, Vladimir, is that even today, everyone can build a home. Everyone can feel God with their soul and live in paradise. One single moment is all that separates paradise from people living on the earth today, right? Any one of them can enter the Creator's pristine garden and there bring about splendid conjoint creations with him,
Mm,
right? And one of the main ideas of the series is what is called a kins domain.
hmm
So, a 2.5 acre or 1 hectare piece of land where a family creates a living paradise garden home for themselves and their future children to pass on in perpetuity, right? And she talks about this spot being many, many things. She says, you know, you would call this spot your motherland. All the best things of the universe would come into contact with it, this piece of land, firsthand. Come into contact with the space of your motherland. You and yourself will feel the whole vast universe through this point and possess power unsurpassed, right? Everything will serve you as God, our creator, wanted it. So, what is this space? What is this idea? Your kin's domain being a living connection to God and the universe, and the space of your family, like kin, your family, your ancestors, past, present, future, and domain being your space, a place that you have dominion over. This is your space, right? Um, so, what is a kin's domain more specifically? Here is just a rough, like, they all depend. How people manifest them is completely up to their own consciousness and everything. But she does give some general guidelines as to how it can look. And this is just a permaculture mock-up that someone in Russia did. But the idea is that it's fenced off with a living fence. So you see this whole hedge around here of whatever kind of trees suit your fancy. 50 to 75% of it is a forest, right? On the edge of the forest, you plant bushes so animals can't pass through. You can make buildings and things out of saplings and trees. So she talks about setting up a pen for a goat with densely planted saplings and for chickens, a pond, um, 2 or 3 log beehives, using trees to make a gazebo or summer sleeping area, and like an outdoor workshop, and all these things made out of living trees, right? So you have your house, this pond, all these different fruit trees, berry bushes, flowers, everything, you name it. 2.5 acres is big. It's 100 meters, length and 100 meters width. So if you try to visualize that, it's pretty large. And why 2.5 acres specifically is this idea again that I was talking about. God has materialized nature, right? And his thoughts are materialized as nature. And so if we interact with those materializations consciously, we will begin to communicate with him directly. We'll begin to understand him and refine ourselves and perfect ourselves through this interaction, this conscious interaction with nature. So the idea is that 2.5 acres is the right size to where you can interact with everything living and growing on that land. And you don't need something larger. 2.5 acres is way more than enough if you set it up properly to provide for your whole family and all this stuff. So Anastasia's telling Vladimir this idea, and he goes, "It won't be a forest, but a palace." And she responds, "Only the palace will be a living entity and continue to grow in perpetuity. This is how the Creator himself thought up the whole balance of things. Everything around you is charged with the task of cherishing and delighting you and your children, cherishing and feeding them. And the other idea, huge idea, this is not like a homestead or something like this. The intent and function and purpose of this is way beyond simply growing your own food and living off the land. The idea is one, this spiritual connection with God through the space, right? She talks about through the, connecting with the whole universe through the space. But the other idea, right, related to family is that two people in love will, and talking about spirituality, what is real spirituality? Two people in love will take this feeling, right, this inspiration of love, dream up and design this space of love, as she calls it, and materialize this, right? This place, and this place, the trees and everything living and growing, when they plant it with this inspiration, with love, it'll reflect that energy back at them. It'll hold that energy, reflect it back at them, and be a place. Love will fill this space. One of the main ideas of the series is that the energy of love can't exist in places where there's like death and decay and destruction, like our normal modern apartments and things like this. She says it aspires to the divine creation. It aspires to life. It needs a living space to fill and occupy. So we can create the conditions for love to grow and flourish. And so two people take this dream, they embody their love as a material thing, right? It's visible, you can interact with it. This is the embodiment of their love. Then they give birth to their kids here. They conceive their kids here in this space that was planned entirely for their kids, right? So this place was created for their children, and when they pass on, they will hand it down to them. And their kids grow up in this place where they think every tree here, every grass, every flower, everything was planted for me. This whole place was made for me, this beautiful paradise, right? And so she says, everything is around you is charged with the task of cherishing and delighting you and your children, right? And so these things, these domains do not happen in isolation. What happens, and these are just a couple of photos of various domains across Russia. All of these are different ones. I think this right here on the bottom might be the same one, but these are just a few, if you look, and they are extremely beautiful. Um, but what happens is families come together and they create what are called Kinsdomain settlements. And so imagine each family has 2.5 acres, right? And you can get, anywhere from 5 to 10 to dozens or hundreds of families coming and doing this together. So imagine each family creating a space like this of paradise and love for their family and doing this with many, many other families. And it you're beginning to turn the earth into a paradise bit by bit, full of happy families. And this map here on the left is a Russian map that is an attempt to show the location of all these different settlements across the world. You can see in Europe and Russia and all over the place, there are many of them. This map is far from complete, and this is like a couple years old. So, um, this is old, but it's approximate. You can get the idea. And it's far different from any single like eco village model, which will only have maybe one community that exists following one, idea. Many people, all these settlements take different form depending on the people, there and how they organize it, but the overarching vision and idea is the same, which is very interesting. So the movement is spreading like wildfire across the world. In Russia, there is at minimum 382 settlements that are listed. Um, many of them don't like to make themselves known, so you could guesstimate 500, 600, who knows, just in Russia alone. You can look at Belarus, Ukraine, there are dozens of them there. Former Soviet Union countries, Europe, there's lots and lots of people living this way. This photo here on the right is one of the oldest settlements in Russia. This is just a small little piece corner. It's not even that good of a photo, but each of these little squares you see here is one domain, one kin's domain. So all these different families here. This community in particular is like 25 years old. They have 100 families living on it. I'm friends with one of the leaders of the community, one of the founding members. It's amazing. So then coming down, is there more? Yeah, here's one of our friends' domains from Ukraine, Just a beautiful place. And then I can show you even more going down here. Yeah, the space of love, preserving love in families. These are more photos. This couple here built this beautiful little house by hand. This guy carved all these wonderful wood carvings into it. Unbelievably beautiful domain that they
Mm.
have. Oh, and this photo right here is the gate to the domain. That's single domain of that family. The couple I was just showing you there. Um, it's literally like paradise.
Mm.
So then, do I have any more photos of domains? No. Um, One last thing I'll say on this idea is I just want to read a quote, if you'll indulge me, Justin.
Yeah,
I
I'm
just want to
loving
read a
this.
quote about this idea. Because what we're talking about again is real. I keep saying paradise, and I'm showing you all these things. We are far, far, far out of the realm of theory, and we are very deep into the realm of practice. This has been, these communities, these settlements have existed 25-ish years on the older end. In Russia, there's hundreds of them alone in that country, and they are spreading across the world, and millions of people are aspiring to do this. And one idea that I think, one quote from the books that encapsulates this very well to me personally is Vladimir saying, "Let each one of us take a small plot of his land, pull his whole mind and whole spirituality together, and create a very small but concrete paradise.
Mm.
He will transform his little piece of land on our large planet into a flourishing garden, giving a material embodiment to his spirituality, following God's example." And I can touch on that idea. If millions of people do this in a whole lot of countries, then the whole earth will become a flourishing garden. A father and mother who are actually creating a space of love for their children are more spiritual than the most celebrated wise men who only talk about spirituality. Let the spirit of each man spring up from the ground as a beautiful flower, a tree with fragrant fruit, and let this take place on every single hectare of our planet. And that's the idea. That's the vision, right? You are creating a paradise. You have done something. You have embodied your spirituality. You can only create externally what you are inside, right? You can only manifest outside of you what is inside of you. And what a more beautiful way to to live in your divine image than to turn this earth into a beautiful paradise. He says, giving a material embodiment to his spirituality following God's example. The idea of this God's example thing is that God did the very same thing. When he dreamt of the world and he created the world, he envisioned the sun, the moon, the stars, the water, the plants, everything, this unbelievably glorious place, manifested all of it, right? You can even read in Genesis, right? Manifested all this and then put us here to enjoy it. So he envisioned a space, filled it with beauty and love and all of this, then essentially gave birth to Adam and Eve, right? In conjoint creation with the energy of love, and gave them this garden to then do these things with. And so human beings, we can repeat exactly the same thing. We can take this space, you can think of the nature as a canvas, and we can perfect it and make it even better than what it is right now. This whatever empty field that you move to, you can turn that place into a flourishing paradise. Now imagine everyone living this way. And this becomes a practical idea because we clearly are faced with ecological deterioration, environmental catastrophe, and all of these things, and that's valid, right? These are real valid problems. And it isn't going to be some corporation that comes in and subsidizes it, or some government that, like, funds a bunch of tree planting programs, but then everyone keeps living in a consumptive way that creates the demand for all this corporate activity that then kills the environment, right? Like, if we don't switch our lifestyles, if we don't switch the way that we all live as families and humans, nothing is going to change, right? And so this is an idea that has practical application in every realm of society. And then if you look on these settlements as well, if you're having happy, loving families where the union between the parents is strong, and continuously grows over time, um, you're eventually, not immediately, because the problem still exists, but you're eventually on the long term going to get rid of the social and, economic causes of crime and all of these things that we deal with, right? I mean, you can. We just did an event yesterday where we talked with a 23-year-old Siberian settlement, like 50 families or something like that. And they're literally saying this, like all of the community members come in and help each other. You can walk around safely there. Everyone helps each other. They all help school each other's children and all of this. Yeah, sure, sure. Some people argue and things like that. But on the whole, it's not like this aggressive, scary society that we live in now, right? And bit by bit, each family doing this is literally creating a whole new civilization. And I get to see it all the time. I see all these settlements and all these people living this way. So I see it and nobody can tell me it doesn't exist. It does, right? And it's just us continuing to go in that direction. We've been presented with a model of a new world, and many, many people are building it. It's a giant thing. It's the most successful community movement probably in the history of mankind. And it's just continuing to grow. And it touches every aspect of life. Um, and that's what it is. So that's my explanation there.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for going through all of that. There's so much we could unpack. I really particularly loved how you compared the Kens domain model or the Kens domain model as the creation story, to model God's creation here and as the
Yep.
Hermetic principles state as above, so below. So that's the example that we are to embody. So the 2.5 acres is a manageable size for an individual or a family to be able to manage to curate and caretake a space to build that, as we talked about, the divine batteries earlier that the ringing cedars offer, these love batteries. So that space
Mm,
then becomes that love battery that you get to step into, you get to recharge yourself. And it doesn't mean that you have to spend all your time there, but every time that you do walk out of it, you're carrying that love with you that you've charged up in that space. And so the more people that take on that example and do that, then everyone becomes this amazing conduit of God's love to just continuously spread it. So that's
right.
why she states it as such a simple, profound way to solve all the problems that we face in this world if everyone commits to a piece of land and makes it as beautiful as they see fit. And of course, we learn and grow through that whole process. It doesn't have to look all exactly the same. Anastasia gives some great models and ideas and how to do it, but just the process of discovering and the commitment to say, I'm dedicated to this space. I want to make it beautiful. I want to grow my family here. That love then can't help but pour out and share and spread throughout all the world. And that's it.
Mm.
That's the solution.
Yeah. It's said in the books, I think one of her grandfathers said that that dream alone, that aspiration alone of I want to build this paradise, settle my family here and grow my family here, that dream and aspiration alone embodies much more closeness to God than so many of the earthly teachings of which we have, dealt with and things like that because it is true. You can look at it. It is a recreation of essentially what God did,
Hmm.
right? And so if we're saying we're going to live our lives in the image of God, what more could we do than to create a more perfect version of the world with which we were given as this beautiful gift, right? I mean, and she talks about this. You said we become like better versions of ourselves. One of the great, best ideas of the series comes from book 10. She talks about, she says the purpose and task facing mankind could be summed up in 4 words. She says these 4 words encompass like the universal law, and she says, perfect the dwelling land,
Mm,
right? Perfect the dwelling land, right? So take this dwelling land, this place, and make it more perfect. And it sounds simple, but it's profound. And she says, perfecting the dwelling land means perfecting yourself,
hmm.
right? You can only manifest what you are. If I am a person with destructive tendencies and this very limited worldview, I can't create this kind of paradise around me, right? Like I wouldn't be able to because it's not there within me, right? But if you interact with the creation, this beautiful infinite cycle begins where you do something, you get feedback, and now I understand and I go deeper, right? And I've taken whatever piece of land I've started with and I've made it better. So I've accelerated my consciousness, my understanding, and then she says, perfecting the dwelling land means giving birth to and raising children who are more perfected than you yourself. And then presenting them with a more perfected dwelling land, right? And then now imagine if the entire humanity is living this way. All of us are going on this journey of like making the our space more beautiful, more perfect, ourselves more perfect and refined. Then we have children and they are better than us and they inherit this space and they make it better. Then they have children in the same way. We've started this infinitely upward proceeding cycle of perfection, which knows no limit. We can only begin to grasp at the heights to which humanity can climb, right? In conscious, co-creation with God, and what our real potential is. I mean, even just the kids being born first generation on these settlements are astounding children. There was a story yesterday shared in this presentation. Uh, there was like a group of kids and some adults walking through the forest, bunch of kids who were born on the settlement, this 23-year-old settlement, and they're walking through the forest. It's like unusually windy. One of the kids steps out. He's like a little kid, like 6 years old or something. And he's like, we just need to talk to the wind and tell it to slow down and it'll stop. So he goes off alone and he like says some stuff out loud and then the wind just stops. And and all the parents are wondering. They're like, we didn't teach him that. Where did he get that idea to do that? Like, how did that idea even occur to him? And then of course you can't say definitively, did he stop the wind? But the coincidence is there. And the idea that this child would interact with the world in that way is incredibly unusual, especially the fact that no one put that idea in his mind. Where did he get that from? Right? And it's like, what are these kids capable of if we don't get in their way and
Right.
if we let them interact with nature as God intended and they grow up in a place? Imagine the feeling. And it's like, Justin, it's like you and everybody else I meet. It's like, imagine the feeling if we grew up in a garden that everything we look at, we knew our parents planted and did for us, and everything is there living and growing for us, and we're in this space, and the pollen and the smells and the birds and the wind and the fruits and everything is like, this is our place. Like, you couldn't have a closer connection to the earth or the universe if you tried. You literally couldn't, and it's just like, what would we be like? Who would we be? Who could we become even now, like as we are, and we could go and create these places? Like, what kind of healing would we experience? You know what I mean? And it's
Truly.
just there's a lot to consider there. There's a lot to consider.
Yeah, I mean, just no one needs to give a child the idea that they can do that. It's, as you mentioned, it's the ideas that we can't do those. Those are the ones that get forced into and educated out of us in all these different ways. So that's another big
Yeah.
topic that Anastasia is very, very consistent with because her and Vladimir end up having, sorry to give spoilers, but they end up having children together. And
Hmm.
that's a big part of how Vladimir's like, well, they got to go to school, they need to get educated in this way, so they're going to miss out on how they're going to learn anything. And she's like,
Yeah.
no, no, I'm just going to let nature teach them. They will learn everything that they need to do, and whatever they're drawn to learn further, they will have the capacity to do that. So to reformat all education and truly just let our mother, our sacred mother, Mother Nature, be the guide, be the ones who guides through all of that to come out, and then we don't grow up with these limiting ideas that we are unable to talk to nature or move things with just our essence, our intention. So it's yeah, it's profound
Mm.
reading that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And as you're saying about the educational system, that's a big, raising children in the books is a huge topic for Anastasia, and she just is so passionate to share about it. And one of the things she talks about is, right, like this technocratic system that we live in is designed to shut off the thinking of everyone, right? To shut off their thinking and to slow down our thinking, right? And to kill, she literally says at certain points that it's like this whole system is designed to kill you as like man, like the spirit. You know what I mean? It's straight up engineered that way. And um, you know, uh, again, people on the settlements, they will homeschool their kids, or there's all these ways out of it, but that's not what I'm trying to say. It's that there is so much there once we interact with nature in this conscious, open-hearted way, right? She says, a single creator inspired by love is stronger than all of the sciences combined, which are deprived of love, right? with and she gives an example. She also talks about the history of mankind, and how we did not come from, like, I just find it so funny. I don't know if anybody else sees it this way, but like somehow the whole universe big banged, and somehow like some planets started to form somehow in some crazy way, and then like water formed somehow, and then it was like hot water, and then a single cell organism formed in there, and then it like started cell dividing on its own and somehow could survive the harsh conditions, and then eventually became a fish, which became like a lizard. It crawled out of the water onto a beach, and then it became somehow like a monkey at some point on the beach, and then that monkey became me. I don't know. And she, some things like that. We've been presented with this bleak, kind of random, pointless origin story of humanity, which couldn't be further from the truth, right? Like we were created in a divine inspiration of love and joy in paradise in full power at the beginning, and descended to our current point, not came up, right? We didn't like, this isn't the high point of our culture. And she talks about in history, there's a worldwide culture called the Ved Rus culture. Meaning like knowing, like Vedic, and Rus being this region of the world. You could say Russia, but that whole kind of territory. And she says this culture thrived from England all the way to China, that whole land. And she says those who recently called themselves Americans as well are all from one single family. And you can even look biblically, the Tower of Babel. Everybody spoke one language before the Tower of Babel. Well, how could you speak one language if you're not one culture? Right. And she says this culture, began to descend about 10,000 years ago into what we have at this point. But the whole world was covered in domains, and these God people knew God, and they interacted with God in this wonderful way. And we've gotten to this point, right? We came from an enlightened, truly, spiritual, God-knowing culture, and progressively got down to this point, right? And the educational system being a part of this. I forgot what my main point was. I had some bigger overarching point as to why the history was brought up. But I guess that's one of the interesting topics. Maybe I'll remember what I was trying to say.
Yeah, well, just to expand on that, that's the false paradigm that we're presented with is this: you either have to choose to be a science worshiper that would just evolved pond scum turned into monkeys and some lovingless, meaningless existence tucked away at some far off distant speck of the universe, and we could be wiped out at any point by the sun exploding or asteroids or whatever. So
Yeah.
so just that, whatever, like say fuck it, and that it doesn't really matter. So that's one side that we're presented, and then the other side is through this religious dogma where you were created by a creator, but the creator views you as some worthless piece of shit that's just a sinner
Gonna
for
go
their
to
whole
hell
life, and
forever.
you're going to go to hell. And you can't really do anything but
Yeah.
worship and grovel, and maybe you'll be spared, but yeah, good luck with that. And so there's no love in
There's no
that system
winning.
either. Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
winning. You have to pick. It's we're presented as that we have to choose these between these two, instead of
Hmm.
the balance point, which is that there is a creator and it's benevolent and loving, and love permeates through this whole existence, and you are here as the pinnacle of God's creation, here to step into your highest and truest potential as the steward and
Mm.
caretaker of this wonderful space, as an aspect, a fragment of that divine creator.
Hmm.
How much more
Yeah.
encouraging and beautiful is that story, and how much less does that give room for us to act like assholes, or act like we're just self-indulgent and worshiping only ourselves, or groveling to some far off distant deity? What if you are
Mm.
an aspect of that, and you're here with this divine responsibility to step into this amazing expression as a creative being? It's
Mm.
such a more encouraging story. It's so much more beautiful that
Mm.
way. But of course, when you have a society that's designed to invert and control, distort and manipulate, then of course they can't allow that version of the story to get to our ears, because then the slave game is ruined. You can't control anyone. As soon as people realize that
Yeah.
they are fragments of that divinity, then that divinity is not going to want to play the slave game any longer. So the jig is up. So that's why
Mm,
these layers of distortions have been so regimented and consistent. And that's why, this series has met a lot of resistance with becoming more widespread. And
yep.
whether intentioned or not, it's hard to say, but it would make sense as seeing the pattern of how when this story comes up, when these figures come out and say, "Hey, you gotta get off your feet and do this," but you are amazing. We're angels that forgot how to fly. We're these angels of light that forgot that we who we truly are, and so it's all about
Mm,
remembering. But yeah, so
mm,
it's that's where we get to today. It's quite
yeah.
quite the experience, but grateful for it and grateful for the learning along the way, and but also quite very grateful that it seems like we are stepping out of this dark forgetfulness and we're starting to remember again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how beautifully you just said that, man. I enjoyed listening to every word of that. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
And it's exactly to your point. It's like the jig is up once you realize this. There was one of the quotes that I shared earlier about the when she says the most important thing is that even today everyone can build a home. Everyone can feel God with their soul and live in paradise. Right before that, she says, "Let the people hear about what others have tried for 1,000 years to hide from them."
Mm,
About how it takes hardly a moment for any one of them to enter the Creator's pristine garden and there bring about splendid conjoint creations with Him,
mm,
right? It's that, as I was saying earlier, God has materialized everything. His body is the material universe and all these creations. When we create like this, we are actually co-creating with Him, conjoint creations, right? We're taking what He has given us and He Himself and working with it and perfecting it and making it better. I am co-creating a paradise here with Him, right? And these creations bring joy to everyone who perceives them, right? And she says this is the core thought of the entire series is that God's purpose for us is conjoint creation and joy for all from its contemplation. So, what are things that universally bring joy to everyone when they contemplate them? Right? And these are fascinating ideas to think about. And also, she says that we have a particle of God within us, that the dark forces and all these things are always trying to cover up and make obscure and unknown to ourselves, right? But we can see ourselves as we truly are and go and live in this divine way, right? And and create these splendid conjoint creations, and they are. It's like when the kids like, what is happier than you give birth to these kids in paradise and they grow up? I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures of domains and families, and like I showed just a couple of these people with their children, and it's like the people are genuinely so happy. I mean, I went to Russia. I went to Russia in 2016. I went to one of the largest and oldest, most successful Kinder's domain settlements. It's like 350 families. They got like 600 hectares. It's giant. And it's ridiculous. It's like you're on another planet when you're there. And I met the happiest people that I've ever met in my life living there. I remember one of the guys that I stood next to. I have some photos of him and his beautiful family. So beautiful. This wonderful man named Dima. And like from the outside, his domain is completely grown in. You can't see inside. The hedge is completely grown in. On the inside is this paradise garden, beautiful little handmade wooden house, all of this stuff. And we're at this like event on the settlement in this geodesic dome, one of the common houses they call them on the settlement. They were always celebrating at birthday parties, or they teach the school there. Like the parents take turns teaching lessons to the kids, and so we're in one of these things at a party. I'm standing next to Dima, and this guy is radiating so much joy and love that there's like a perceptible like heat coming off of his body and like a vibrant light. And I was like, this guy is so profoundly happy and filled with love that standing next to him, I felt like I was a dead, shriveled little sponge. I swear to God, I felt like gray and cold and tired standing next to this guy. And I was like, I thought I was pretty decent. I thought I was well off. But I'm like standing next to this guy, there's clearly something that I'm missing. This guy has something that I really want. This guy is profoundly happy, right? He is profoundly happy in a way that I've never seen. And he wasn't the only example. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, well, by their fruits ye shall know them,
Mm,
right? When these people are so profoundly happy and warm and loving and vibrant, it's like, well, what can you say about the lifestyle, right? And it's like, um, if we're able with our presence to give love and joy and make this world tangibly better, like, what's beautiful about this is that it's so practical. People want to live this way. They will plant hundreds of trees. They will plant hundreds of bushes and hundreds of flowers and build their house and their pond. Like, you don't even need to pay them. This isn't like some large scale nonprofit regeneration, thing. This is like people want to do this with their heart and soul. That's the only way you're going to have any long-term success in regenerating everything. If everyone's not on board, then what are we going to do? You know what I mean? Like there people are really on board with this. They'll do anything to make it happen, and again, Anastasia discourages acting rashly or acting too quickly without thinking things out, and planning for the long term. I don't want to advocate for, reckless behavior, but you get what I'm saying. And
mhm.
well, yeah, I'll digress there, but yeah, you said everything so beautifully. It's such a great conversation talking with you, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this, and everyone in the chat is very happy to be here. They're just really enthusiastic about this conversation, and yeah, yeah. So maybe we can shift just a little bit. I'd love to hear
Please.
more about the Anastasia Foundation, and maybe kind of how
Yeah.
that came to be, and what where it's gone since you've started it, and then your
hmm
vision for where you'd like to take it.
Yeah. Thank you. It's a great question. So, when I read the books in 2000, November of 2014, right before my 20th birthday, I had this experience where I realized I want to dedicate the rest of my life to spreading these ideas and connecting people. So, I started to look and see how are people connecting right now. And at that time, there was, if you searched on Google, Ringing Cedars community or something like that, there was two forums it would take you to, but both of them were dead. They were like you'd get a 404 error and there was no way of talking with anyone. And so I was like a child of the internet kind of thing, very tech savvy forum user, all of this. So I was like, well, I should create one. So I did, because I was like, this is a crime that people can't connect around these ideas. I was lonely. It was a profound sense of loneliness that I had from reading these books until I could connect with the first other reader that I'd ever met. Right? It was like like you're in this beautiful dimension of light by yourself, right? And it was a profound sense of loneliness. So I'm like, well, for myself and for everyone else, we need to fix this. So that's the origin story. Is it starts as a forum. I meet some of my best friends and earliest people who come as members. We start having phone calls all the time. We have like, finally someone understands me. I can connect with other readers. We start doing very grassroots things, little meetups here and there, whatever. 2016, I manage a readers gathering with Vladimir in New York City. Video of that is on YouTube on our YouTube channel. It's the first video on our channel. There's 6 parts. Um, but you can check that out. And anyway, we keep building momentum. We have the blessing of Vladimir. He comes again next year, 2017. I keep doing meetups, everything I can. I'm like young, you know, uh, doing what I can, doing meetups everywhere. Um, Fast forward, I'm skipping a bunch of parts of the story, but fast forward to like COVID time. Um, imagine years of doing meetups and connecting people, Facebook groups, online platforms, this and that for years. Um, COVID comes, I finally turn it into a formalized nonprofit, not a 501(c)(3. We're an unincorporated church, actually. But anyway, for people interested in the legal stuff.
Mhm.
But it's worth looking into. But we turn it into a nonprofit, and COVID winds up being giant for us. Like people, we grow exponentially, ridiculously. Um, and I'd already had built like a big mailing list and groups of people around the world and all that. We had like international traction, and I wanted to like not. I was focusing on the United States at first. I wasn't even trying to do anything in Canada, but then I realized like no one's actually organizing anything on a large scale regarding these ideas or this movement. I was like looking around Europe and seeing what are people doing there, but like no one was stepping up. I'm like, I don't want to do anything in Europe because I feel like I'm overstepping my boundaries. Let me just stay in the United States. And then years go by. And it's like no one's organizing anything. If they are, it's in some local area. No one knows about it. You have to be friends with the people. So I'm like, okay, I guess we're international then out of necessity. And so we start doing things internationally. We have events all around the world. Like on July 23rd, it's one of the significant days in, there's the Ringing Cedars holiday essentially. We have a program called the Regional Ambassador Program, who are like trusted readers in different regions around the world, connecting people and doing events.
Hmm.
We have a wonderful young woman in Denmark. We have Bali. We have Germany. We just recently got Croatia. We're about to have Italy, and this is like we got places Australia, all over the United States, here, Asheville, you name it, Canada, and it's like we're just still steadily growing. We're gonna have events. We're gonna have like 12 different events on one day worldwide. Probably more. Um, and so getting back to this, um, COVID winds up being huge for us. A ton of people come into the community. And now we've got like in-person meetups happening. We do online events all the time, connecting readers, European readers, American, North American readers, everybody international. Um, Now I'm actually going to be publishing the books. I'm friends with Vladimir, so there's a lot of pre-existing legal things that need to be taken care of between Vladimir and the old publishers, which I am resolving and bringing forward. The books have been out of print for quite a long time, but hopefully we'll be fixing all this soon. So I've got this, we'll be publishing the books. Plus, we are essentially the function of the Anastasia Foundation is like community connection infrastructure, community organizing infrastructure for people to connect, get resources, and go forward better than we were alone. Because it takes community to do this, right? It takes us connecting to do this. That didn't exist before. One of the publishers of the books, he passed away. Well, one of the people involved in marketing and publishing the books in English passed away in 2022. But right before he passed away, a couple months before, he found our community online and he came into our main Telegram chat, which has several thousand members. And he was like, what you guys are doing here is what has always been needed. I'm so glad to see this space and everything that's coming from it. And just, he was so happy. So it really made me feel good to hear that before he passed away, and Vladimir loves what we're doing. I have this quote printed out from him. He wrote me an email and he said, I intuitively feel that you could create a large and powerful community in the English speaking countries. It could present the world with a new paradigm for overcoming the crisis. The correctness of my assumptions has been proven in practice. In all countries where I've ever spoken to readers, they've expressed their desire to create and be friends. I'm grateful to you that you feel the situation well and are able to do a great deal for all the people in the world. So we're all about just like these were the most affirming words that almost anyone has ever said to me in my life. So that's why
It's
I've printed
amazing.
them here.
Yeah.
Yeah, after this was like 8 years into my journey of doing Ringing Cedars things that I finally got these words from the man. So it meant a lot to me. But that's what we do. We connect and inspire and hope to, anything we can to serve the readers and anyone who's new coming in, publishing and selling the books, doing events, and all these millions, everything we can do, we are doing completely in service to everyone. So we're a volunteer organization. So if you want to meet readers near you, if you want to connect with other people worldwide, come on in. You'll be greeted with open arms, the most warm and loving people that you'll possibly imagine. Many people join our Telegram group and say it's the most positive and warm group that they've ever been a part of. And that's a testament to the people who make it up, the people who are a part of it. It ain't nothing to do with me. It has to do everything with the people's hearts. So I'm just humbled to be able to serve. It's profoundly beautiful. I'm the luckiest guy ever. My life is filled with beauty and joy on a daily basis. It's ridiculous. And I'm just a really lucky guy. So that's what we do.
Yeah, well, I disagree with you that it has nothing to do with you. You've definitely been a very instrumental part of that, and there is no doubt seeing the work that you've done, the skills that you bring into this space, and even just your name. We talked about this when we met up, but
Oh, yeah.
the name chosen for him, Gabriel Miguel, Gabriel Michael, the two
Yep.
archangels, archangel of the messenger and the archangel of the warrior. So he's a messenger and a warrior coming to bring this message in with profound tenacity and the ways that you incorporate your technical skills and your web development skills to present these.
Yeah.
It's such a gift. It's such a gift, and I'm truly honored to be able to just be a part of it in any which way. So when I learned about this and learned about, because I've known the series for a little bit, but it was our mutual friend Remembrancer or Ace who
Hmm.
told me about this group and how you guys
Love that
meet up
guy.
regularly. Yeah, he's an amazing guy, and so that's how Gabriel and I met, and we had the pleasure of getting to meet up in person and spend time together, which was absolutely
Great pleasure.
wonderful. Yeah, really, really good time. And so it just shows with all the work that you're doing. So thank you for taking us through that little uh, journey down memory lane of the Anastasia Foundation and how you've gotten incorporated or gotten involved with it or created it really, and what it's turned into. So
Yeah.
in regards to the books specifically, you mentioned dealing with the legal issues to get those printed because I know that's a big concern with people who go to look for them physically and they're like, man, these books cost
Yeah.
like $80, $100.
If
Um,
only I could do more.
well,
I mean, literally, I'm doing more than I'm doing as much as can possibly be done. The remaining stock of the books, the new ones, old stock printed in 2010, the last remaining books were donated to me by the publisher. It was only a couple thousand copies. We don't have that many left. But I kind of find it poetic that the final new stock is running out, and then soon we will very likely be publishing and printing new ones. So there's some kind of cosmic cycle closing there. But I'm very disappointed. If there's anyone who's frustrated about the availability of the books, it's me. So that's why we make them available free on PDF, anastasia.foundation/books. There are PDF to book printing services. You can get them printed pretty affordably if you prefer physical. And you don't have to buy the books from us. They are still a little bit higher priced than I would like to. It's just a supply and demand thing. But it does fund our organization and our work. So if you want to support us, you can buy books, ringingcedersbooks.com. But yeah, I hope to when we publish them again, selling new copies of the books for, like 19.99, as close as I can, as cheaply as I can. You want to have well-constructed, durable books and all these things, and we need to retranslate them and edit them and make them better than they were. There's opportunity for improvement. So the books, they will be the best version that you could possibly get. Um, and then a used book market will form because there's supply now. So when I bought the books, I got book one for like $2 on eBay. That doesn't happen anymore. But eventually it'll happen because we're just printing books and I'm going to be giving them away like Santa Claus, 'cause it's just like, get these books out of here. I do that now. I have like, I
you
have a
do.
box of copies of book one in my car and I just give them out to everybody. It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling. It's intoxicating. But so we're working on solving that problem. All I ask is if anyone's interested, please give us your patience and grace. And I assure you that when it does come to fruition, it'll be fantastic. So it'll be worth the wait. But here's where we're at. But I think in the meantime, there's so much work happening with like readers and community being built and locally all over the world that when this new influx of people come, when the books are published again, that they're going to have places to go. Like when I read the books, there was no place to go. I couldn't connect with anyone. Now we have groups everywhere. We have people everywhere. So I think the development of Kins domains and settlements and all this community and all this stuff is going to be like exponentially more than what it was before. So we're at the brink of the rocket like launching like crazy. I wish I had a better metaphor than rocket, than the bamboo shoot after 5 years. I don't want to use a technocratic metaphor for this, but yeah, like the bamboo shoot after 5 years growing 30 feet. That's where we are, so hang tight, everyone, if you're interested.
Yeah, we've only just begun. I can feel that surge coming, and I said in another post that I have no doubt that this model is going to be one of the most profound examples for people to gravitate towards when the society as we know it starts to fade away for whatever reason, but we start
Yeah.
to lose taste with how this is going because it's not sustainable in this way. everyone's going to be looking for a way out, for a
Yes.
guide to help them engage with this. And of course, we can look at other spiritual teachings, but as we talked about at the beginning, there's nothing that's more practical of like, here's what you can do right now. Which is
Right.
actually one of a question from Donna Dika. She asked,
Hmm.
"What would you recommend?" So, what practices or lifestyle? So, she quoted, "A journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single step," from the Tao Te Ching. So, what
Yep.
practices or lifestyle changes would Gabriel suggest an average family to implement first?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. That's a common question. And this is a very good thing to discuss. So there's a whole spectrum of experience and consciousness and like what things people are ready for. Some people might feel genuinely ready to buy a piece of land and move there full time right now, but that's very likely not the experience for most people. I mean, I read the books coming up on 11 years ago, right? And I still don't own a piece of land. I don't have a kin's domain and like big garden and all this stuff, right? I'm working my way towards that, and it might happen within like the next year or two. And even in the third book, Anastasia makes a very good point because Vladimir's like, should we all just run off and live in the forest? She's like, no. One thing is that we've made a mess of the cities in our own life. And like, who's going to clean that up? If we all go live in the forest and leave everything a wreck? And it's like, we can make the earth more beautiful wherever we are, and we should. Me, I don't know if my rationale is fully justified. Like, I'm not working in my specific city because I'm working worldwide, right? So I give myself a pass on that. But for me, just me. But I'm like, if you live in a city, can we do something to make this place more beautiful? Is it community garden? Is planting gardens in places? Can we do nature programs? Anything like this? Can we find a way of cleaning up the water? All these things, right? She says water is going to be the criterion. Day by day, water becomes more and more dirty, and we'll only be known for bequeathing this filth to our descendants, right? And so, what can we do where we live? If I live in the city, if I live in an apartment, I can plant, what she calls like a family tree. I can take a long living tree like an oak or a cedar, plant it in a pot, grow it, and when I water it, give it my attention, my kind thoughts, and grow this thing. And just that tree alone of like maybe I'll plant it on my land later on, right? When I finally move there, that embodies so much closeness or, you know, um, even just being a more loving person in your life, right? The idea of if you can't make the people around you feel love and feel happy, then your spirituality is a pseudo spirituality, right? Can we become better? I think about this all the time. I'm not a perfect guy, and I certainly wasn't when I read the books. I was like 19. So I think about them like, do people genuinely enjoy being around me? Do they feel loved in my presence? Do they feel warm and safe and supported? I got some feedback from someone yesterday who told 2 days ago exactly that. Like, I feel so safe around you and I feel like so warm and supported. And it's like, well, good. I'm really trying. I'm really, like not ego, but I'm really trying. I'm really glad you feel that. Thank you for telling me. Someone even today, one of my good friends was saying the same thing. Um, and that's good, So there's a huge spectrum of things we can do. Can we do like childhood education things? Can we get involved in, helping expose the youth to these things, these ideas, and helping them make a better world? There's so many things that need to be done, right? Leading towards this ultimate destination of the whole world becoming a beautiful paradise, right? If I live in an apartment, one of our community members, and regional ambassador in New York City, this guy named Lenny, you go into his apartment and it's like just nothing but plants and everything growing everywhere. The guy's got like fruit trees growing in his apartment. It's crazy. And it's like that's really incredible. People have a transformative experience just coming to his place, and he's growing a lot of his own food. And I hope this is making sense and it's not sounding
Absolutely.
too far off. You know what I mean? Like we can make the places we live more beautiful. We can clean them up. We can get involved and lift humanity or the earth up in so many different ways, and we should. And then maybe 10 or 15 years from now, you'll be ready to buy some land and move there. Maybe not. Maybe you stay in the city your whole life and you have a mission and calling there. But I would say, obey the dictates of your heart and where your heart is telling you to live and what the dream of your heart actually is, right? Do you really feel like you want to help these people here? You want to help this place Do you really, really, truly feel like you want to live in this other place and start this new society there? Do you want to do both? Like eventually, when I have a community, very likely in the Asheville area, and the settlement has grown a bit, I want to start a program with the local schools, to take some of the kids from the city and show them this place. Right? Because it's like they can see, it can impress upon their mind that there's a different way of life that's possible. That's something I'm really passionate about. I really want to reach inner city kids, and so there's a huge spectrum of things that can be done. Um, but just fill the world with love and make it more, it sounds very cliche, but you can. You're powerful.
Yeah,
You're powerful.
absolutely. Yeah, this is a great answer. And I would just say that just reading through the series, you will find those things that jump out to you to do right away. And the things to keep in mind for long term venture. Like she's very good
Yeah.
at distinguishing between those two as she's describing to Vladimir, here's some tips of what you can do if you are in an apartment in a city, and here's when
Hmm.
you start to shift into your kin's domain. So
Right.
yeah, it is specific, dependent on wherever we are within our journey and whatever calls to us. So I thought that was a
Yep.
very great answer.
And don't rush and take it slow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Lenny, the guy I was telling you with the amazing apartment in New York, he he read the books like 20 years ago, like in Russian or something. And he still doesn't have a piece of land, but he's been saving money, working very hard. He started all these things with like dividend stocks and is doing well for himself now. And now finally has the means to where he can actually buy a piece of land here in the United States and like start a community and a settlement. So he's been visiting Eastern Texas, going from New York City to a place in Eastern Texas. He drove all around, settled on Eastern Texas, is planning on buying a piece of land there, but he's 20 years into his journey and he's finally going to go there, and it's like everything had its purpose, everything had its timing. And so it's like, don't don't rush yourself and just give yourself grace. If that's what you want to do, maybe you never feel like you want to move there. Maybe you want to stay. But it's listen to the call of your heart, and trust yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. Yeah, Donadika said, thank you for your thoughts on this, Gabriel, and your friends are spot on. Your frequency resonates, abundant love.
Oh, thank you. I'm
Yeah.
humbled. I'm glad that my answer could be of any insight or use. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And then was curious. So one thing about the books before I forget. So Paisley asked, will book 10 be published and printed whenever that happens? Okay.
Great question. Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Perfect.
Absolutely, yes. And there's actually a new version of book one that was published in 2021 that has 13 new chapters in it. It's only available in Russian. In that folder, the PDF folder I mentioned earlier, I translated and edited those chapters to a readable degree, and they are a continuation from book 10. So if you read the whole series, then you do book 10, then you do the new chapters of book one. All of it is in that folder there. You'll see it all clearly labeled. So we
Great.
will do the new version of book one as well, and audiobooks and ebooks and all that. It'll all be
Fantastic.
there.
Well, if you need a narrator, I'm happy to contribute any which way.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's good to know. And I've looked at the PDF versions myself, and the folder is really nice. There's a nice README file in there that explains everything, that goes over a PDF to print service that you can use. There are a lot out
Yep.
there, but that one just kind of is very simple. So I think it's a great way to get a physical copy of the books in the
Yep.
meantime while
For a
that all
pretty
gets figured out.
affordable price, like 24, 25 bucks for a book. It's not so bad.
Yeah, yeah, it's not bad at all. Cool. And then in regards to Ken's domains, I would love if you could touch on the project that you're working on as far as
Oh
the
yeah.
the database and how that's all coming together, because that's a really exciting portion that
Oh yeah.
love to hear more on.
I can share my screen real quick for everybody to see.
That would be great.
So the website is not live yet, but I mentioned earlier that there is at least 382 settlements in Russia. And why I said that specific number is because they have a Russian nonprofit called the Anastasia Foundation there that has a little bit of a database of these settlements in Russia and other countries. And one of the problems with the database that they have, it's good, at least there's a listing, but there's a lot of very incomplete information or a lot of the settlements. I'm about to pull everything up here and show you exactly what I'm talking about. I'm pulling up the list right here, and I'm going to do a bit of a comparison between the two platforms. But because the 386 is the number, okay, that's 386. It's been updated. But yeah, so basically the platform that they have is not user friendly. Everything has to be manually done. You guys are about to see right here, so I'm not just giving you my opinion, but you'll see share screen. And this is one of the projects that I'm proudest of in life and I think matters a lot. So you can see this here. This is the Russian listing. This right here, 386 settlements in Russia.
Mm.
This means Kin's domain, um, Kin's domains in Russia, right? That's what this means. I should maybe translate this page, but you get what I'm saying. So there's this big HTML table, and you can go through, and each one of these is a settlement. Some of these have more information than others. A lot of them are very incomplete. So let's just go here. You click around. There's, some of them have more or less. There's not that much. Anyway, not very user friendly. You have to send in details manually. You have to email them. I don't
Mm.
even know if they have a dedicated staff person who's updating this that actively. Um, it's not very well organized. So, and one of the reasons, just a little story as to why I embarked on this project is that one of my friends, he's a bard. He sings Ringing Cedars inspired music. And music in the Ringing Cedars is incredibly important for spreading the messages and things. And he's probably the most popular Ringing Cedars bard in Russia. His music is played everywhere. He has millions and millions of views and things online. His name is Ales,
Mm.
Oles, from a settlement called Lubojstok. Kind of hard to spell, but you'll find his music if you search Les Lubostok. Um, Anyway, we were talking with him, and he was saying that Vladimir's people or this nonprofit have been saying there's 380 settlements for years and years, right? This number has not been updated. It hasn't changed. And he's like, is the movement even growing?
Mm.
Is like, are there more settlements and all these things? Like, what's going on? And he got really sad and depressed because the number, seemed stagnated. I can confirm that I've been observing this page for a long time, and it's been about this number for a long time. I don't think it's because settlements aren't being built. I think it's because the reporting on them is
Mm.
lackluster. And this is not, in my opinion, is not a suitable way of showing the growth of this movement at all. It's a bad way of managing it. The data collection is horrible. Anyway, giant problem. I have prominent Ringing Cedars people getting depressed and losing hope about it. So how do we solve this? So here's my attempt at solving this, right? This is still in development. As Justin mentioned, I am a web designer developer. So I built all this from scratch. And the idea is to have an international Kins domain settlement directory. Um, so what you can see here, refreshing, is going to load this map. It's probably a little slow because I am sharing my screen, but I assure you all of this works. Um, is something like blocking this? Am I on the wrong web browser? Maybe because I'm on Brave or something. I don't use this very often. Maybe, Justin, let me just stop my share and open another browser. This
Okay.
map works, I promise you. It's worth seeing, but okay, there it is. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. So yeah, you can see some points here. You can search by country, state, any kind of field that you want by distance. All of these search fields work. The idea is you'll be able to see settlements here. These are actually real photos from different settlements that I just am using as placeholder here. None of this information is actually real. You'll be able to, settlements can log in, they can submit listings, they can update them, manage them over time. I will click into one of these here and you can see. But you can scroll down and see all these settlements. You'll see all this information about their settlement, location, when it was listed, when it was last updated, gallery of photos, as many photos as you want. You can click and open and see through. Look at the beautiful lives that these people live. Look how
Mm.
happy and beautiful they are. It's just, I have so many hundreds of photos. It'll move you to tears. Um, so beautiful. And then you can put a description, right? There's contact information. So if you want to visit, you want to get involved, you just want to connect with these people, you can even open a contact form, connect with them directly. Sorry, 1 second with Zoom. It's not letting me close this. Okay, close that. You'll be able to see all the details: when the settlement was founded, how many families live there, how many hectares are occupied, how many are available, how many children live there, how many people live there permanently, what kind of activities do they do, professions of settlement members, details about the land of the settlement itself. Are there roads? How do people own the land in the settlement? All this information, most of this is standardized fields that people just select from. They're not like typing in custom information for a lot of these. Um, that allows us to do very clean data collection at scale, which gets into some interesting things. But people can describe their membership process. Do you have fees? How do you visit? All of these things. Leadership structure, infrastructure, all this. We collect standardized information for all this. Um, Integrated Google Maps, so it'll show the location. Settlements will also be able to post news. There's a ton going on here, but the coolest thing is all this clean data that we collect.
Hmm.
So then um, we will be able to accurately track many, many, many aspects of the growth of the settlements around the world. That allows us to publish very accurate statistics. The goal is to publish a yearly review on King's Domain settlements through the Anastasia Foundation, where we publish a report on the growth and statistics and things related to this, demonstrating the viability and scale of the movement. So every year, everyone who's listed on here will be required to update a minimum amount of information to stay listed on here. So that means we'll be able to get information from settlements over time, right? Which becomes really interesting to legitimize everything. People can see exactly what's going on. You can search through all these. And this is a way of people like finding settlements, joining them, visiting them, tracking the actual growth. You can log in and manage this yourself. It's easy, it's user friendly, it's modern. But I think this right here is going to completely change the landscape of the entire movement because people don't know where settlements are. They don't know how to get in touch with them. Many settlements don't want to make themselves known. They don't want to build a website. So why not just come here, submit your information, and get a free, basically one-page website? You don't have to, do anything. You can use this to promote your settlement too, and have people. It's a marketing tool because
Hmm.
we're publishing the books. Everyone will find this website. This website is going to get a ton of usage. We'll have a huge database of information. We can publish statistics and reviews and all these things. There's going to actually be a statistics page. We've already built out the tech, but there's like interactive graphs and charts and data that's visualized from all this here. You'll be able to interact with all the data and see. So then no one can say that this isn't real and it's not happening. We're going to basically become the academic, source for all this information. And in comparison to what they're doing in Russia, we're already light years beyond. And yeah, this is going to be a great, great tool. I'm extremely proud of it. I wish I had more time to work on it. I'm trying my best, but it's going to play a big role once it's done.
Oh, that's so amazing. I've seen you present that a few times now, and every time it just lights me up. I get so excited thinking about the potential with it, and it's so beautiful. It's really, really well done. So just
Thank you.
again, just bravo on that. And yeah, excited to see how that unfolds, and that was why I was really excited at getting my audience connected with you and this foundation, because there's so much likeness, there's so much symbiosis between the values and everything that we are doing, and so having an opportunity to see other Ken's domain settlements being worked on and getting excited with other people who are wanting to
Yep.
manifest and that kind of stuff, and having a way to connect in that space is just it's so amazing. So
It's
thank
going to
you
be
again.
revolutionary. Yeah, I mean, it's my joy. I'm glad I have the skills to do it. I built the whole thing from scratch solo, and it's top shelf. I'm really good at what I do. So it's built well. It's going to last. And another thing about it is that interesting insight about the English, Western speaking movement is that so many of the settlements are young. Like you have 25-year-old settlements in Russia, right? But here we don't have those. So a lot of the new settlements will get listed here in their infancy, and
Mm.
then we can track their growth over time to when they become large and thriving. And
Oh,
we'll
that's
have
great.
data on the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? We'll have data
Yes.
on the whole journey. So then no one can argue with us about the validity or scale of these things. And then many more, there is no place to find any of these settlements right now. They're all obscure. People ask me, like, are there settlements in Ireland? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But this will solve that problem. It'll also be translated into other languages. And it's a techie thing, but it like really does serve a big purpose.
Hmm.
And it's going to be a huge tool. So I'm really excited. What was I going to say? Oh, last thing. When founders join and they get listed on the platform, there's an approval process, review, and all this stuff. If you get approved, you get added to a private group of settlement founders. So then now there's an international group of leaders of communities connecting with each other. So then, the sharing and this community of practice then kind of goes crazy. And like I have many friends on my team, or coworkers and things like that say everything we're doing, the kind of infrastructure that we're setting up, like our Telegram groups and all these other things that we've done, they're like, it's not like that in Russia. Even though they have way more people and more settlements and stuff, it's like we have way better channels of doing everything. So once we publish the books, we're going to be able to give them a run for their money, and they're not going to know what hit them, in the best, most competitive, healthy way,
Yeah,
and probably copy us a little bit, which is great, which is great. And when we launch that platform, we'll be launching with at least 10 to 20 actual Russian settlements on the platform on the day of launch. We're going to input
amazing.
all their information. We've got OKs from a bunch of settlements already. So it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Yeah, amazing. And just to have that model too, as you mentioned, to see a settlement grow from infancy, and then you
Hmm.
can showcase particular ones that have like that great model for others to follow, so that it's not such a
Right.
daunting process to get involved with if you wanted to start your own settlement. So
No.
it's magnificent. And
Yeah, and anyone who wants to learn, we're gonna have the biggest like community of practice of like leaders and doers in this and just creating a space for them to connect and share.
yep,
So it's like that also didn't exist in Russia until
yep.
we're gonna do it now. And so that's what I'm saying. The function of our foundation is to connect and serve readers in these ways. And this is one of the most proudest projects of my life. So I can't wait to launch this.
Oh, it's so amazing. Yeah, and you mentioned the so we talked a little bit about this when you first introduced Ken's domains, but I think it'd be good to sort of expand on it. So
Yeah.
how is a Ken's domain settlement different from an eco village and other communal living spaces? What really
Oh
sets it
yeah.
apart?
Yeah, that's a such a good question because the Western mind, we are familiar with the ideas of homesteads and eco-villages, right? A homestead generally could be an incredibly large piece of land that you're using primarily for self-sufficiency or ranching or something like that. The idea of the Kins domain and the settlements is way beyond just like I'm growing my own food. That's one aspect of it. You're growing your food with love. You're not doing on large scale organic agriculture or something like this. But I talked about the idea of directly interacting and giving your conscious attention to everything that's growing, right? That's a big thing. The other idea is creating having the idea of like I'm making this space of love for my family. Like each family owns, that 2.5 hectare is theirs, right? That 2.5 acre, that hectare is theirs. They are sovereign in that place, right? That is their space of their family. And in many eco villages, you don't like. I just visited an eco village here. I'm friends with one of the guys. Turns out he read the entire Ringing Cedar series. Fun fact, I didn't know the leader of the village. But some of my friends who are living there, they live in a yurt on the community, and they were saying like they have problems with everyone coming into their space. Like, where does the boundary of their space begin and end?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And like animals and people and all these disturbances, like you can't sleep at night and all these things. And this is a practical thing, but it's a real issue. It's like you don't have a clear boundary for your place. Or then there's also you are not, so the 2.5 acres, right? You have this very clear boundary. There are alleys and roads between the domains. So you have your space is completely yours. No one can tell you what to do. there are some agreements that settlements will have among the members of like some settlements will say we're not killing animals here and like eating meat, but that's an agreement that people share, right? Or it's like clearly you're not about to come here and spray a bunch of Roundup everywhere, right? So some basic things, but it's yours and it's yours in perpetuity, right? So that's one big thing. Then there's also the idea of like you're not necessarily compelled to community service or like communal activity if you don't want to, right? Like you can live and be a part of the settlement and just be a happy, active neighbor without necessarily needing to take like a leadership role or a working role, as long as you aren't like detracting and causing issues. You're not compelled, for example, like to eat dinner together or even to like live in the same space and share the same space with everyone else, right? Because a lot of eco village, there's co-housing and all those things like that doesn't exist. A lot of these settlements can have retreat spaces or like glamping spaces and cabins that people can rent as a vacation thing. And they'll have businesses and things, some of them, and you can work at the business if you want. But it's like, you get what I'm saying? There's no
Mhm.
compulsion.
Right.
You have your own space, families own their own space. And the idea of the land isn't simply just land and self sufficiency. That's one aspect of it. There's the love aspect, there's the family aspect, these spiritual aspects, connecting with God, handing this land down in perpetuity, giving birth to your children in the space of love, and all these things, which go very, very deep. And families are united by this idea. Each one wants to do that for their family, right? And we're all saying, like, we're better if we do this together,
Hmm.
right? If we all individually create this paradise for our families together, rather than I am creating a community solely for the sake of a community,
Hmm.
right? Like you have a community as a byproduct, but it's a byproduct of, you get what I'm saying, of like an
Oh, totally.
individual desire for the family. So I hope that's a clear explanation
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. It's like the every family is independent and self-sufficient. And that's the idea. It's like we're not going into this community to sort of rely on somebody else's growing food or somebody else doing this or that. We're
Yeah.
going to do it ourselves, but
They
then
barter and support each other too. Like,
yeah,
and they'll help
right,
build each other's houses and stuff, but like you're not forced into things and the shared space concepts and like you're not forced to do those things.
right. Yeah,
Yep.
which is very very akin, and I think we talked about it when I was visiting with you. But a dear friend and brother of mine, Darth Vaderus, who talks about
Hmm.
this original the only form of government that we truly need is the family. That's the only organizing structure that we should ever really exist under is the family. And of course, families can
Yeah.
work together, can have alliances and have all of that. But the family
Right.
is that organizing structure. And so if we limit any idea of government and I'm not saying we can immediately jump to this idea, but to have
Yeah.
that long-term vision of getting back to the simplicity of that, of like, no, the family, this is the family's domain and the family
Yep.
can choose to interact with other families, but we're not
Hmm.
having this behemoth like government or organization or thing that we put our power in and then have this, then we play the victim as like, oh no, that thing's got to come save me, or then it becomes the
Yeah.
oppressor. All that's creates the monster. That creates the monster
Mm.
of how we got into this position. So if we limit it and say, no, the family is where that ends, families can
Right.
interact however they need to, then we don't give room for that natural sort of corrupting energy that always seems to come in and sneak around because we limit it to
Mm.
just that space. So having a Kens domain
Yeah.
settlement built on that is beautiful because it embodies that and keeps it restrained so that, if a family does grow and become corrupt, it's it's contained. It
Yep.
doesn't have power and
Yep.
influence to distort and
Yep.
destroy others.
Yeah, and this is true. Settlements, and they'll handle like if a family or member of the settlement becomes very problematic, this is something that members of the settlement can vote on
Yep.
and decide like we love you or whatever, but you've become a this kind of influence in the community, and you can ask people to leave and things like
Yep.
this, or ask them to change their behavior, and you can govern that in your own way. You
Yep.
can't like in the city, you can't ask your neighbor to move out of their apartment. You got no right. Even if you live right next door to them, you can't
Right.
say anything to them. Um, and it's also, yeah, the family being the organizing structure and this level of self-governance. And it's really it's a lifestyle where you are fully accountable, right? Because in our technocratic system, we've given accountability for all these aspects to our lives to the system, right? We farmed out everything to the system or to other decision makers or, the corporations and the factory farms and all these things and all landlords and all this. And it's like everyone else is liable except me, but in this lifestyle, it's like you have full power over everything. And it's kind of an intense thing. It forces you to look at yourself and how you behave and correct your behavior and be better and be completely accountable. But that's if we're all completely accountable and we're acting in a way that's beneficial to everyone, then we actually have a true long-term solution, right? Like I'm fully accountable. I'm literally doing everything I can and being a benevolent influence, and we're all doing this together. We've fixed the issue from the root, right? Like we've fixed the issue from the root. So that's the idea.
Wonderful. Yeah. So there was just one topic that I'd love to talk about. I mean, we could talk about so many things all day long, but there was
Absolutely.
one more that I wanted to go into, which and we talked about this, you and I together, but just
Hmm.
how Anastasia doesn't really talk about meditation specifically and just how
Yeah, we
that
had a good conversation about this.
yeah. So I'd love it. I'd love
Yeah.
if we could dive back into that and expand on it a little bit.
Yeah. So right behind me here, hold up. I have a picture of Paramhansa Yogananda, author of Autobiography of a Yogi. Um, Whoops. I mentioned that practice meditation and all this. Like I'm a disciple of Yogananda and all this and Kriya Yoga for anyone who's familiar with this particular brand of Kriya Yoga.
Mhm.
And so like it's not like I have no experience with meditation. I have a lot of experience with meditation. And I said this earlier, it was like I had a realization that I could spend lifetimes meditating and still never arrive at the information and conclusions presented in the books. And like the specific Kins domain model and this idea of co-creation and joy for all from its contemplation or settlements and this interaction with the universe. And like I would have never got that. And I understand, Anastasia does speak against meditation. It's like she doesn't say like meditation's bad or anything like that, but she doesn't recommend it as like as it's presented, even by my own guru, my own master. I'm saying this of as like the saving, the thing that will save humanity, right? Is like everyone meditates and everyone reaches this extremely high spiritual state. It's like getting to nirvikalpa samadhi and getting rid of all of your karma is like a wonderful goal if you can do that, but it's incredibly difficult and unobtainable for the average human, like just objectively. And it's a great goal and cool. It's great to have power over yourself and to be free spiritually and inwardly. It's like I have some experience of that, but it's like it's not a thing that everyone will do. And it's certainly not a thing everyone will have a passion for. You're not going to get the vast majority of humanity to meditate like that. But, also it also doesn't address, and I'm saying this as like someone who's a disciple, literally, saying this of my own master's teachings. It's like it doesn't address the idea of love or having children and things. There's even Yogananda audio where he says the purpose of life isn't having children and stuff like this. And there's a quote in book 8.2 here where Anastasia's grandfather is speaking on the things of the prophets and the masters of the past. And he says, whether they knew it or not, he said, they led people to a place where there is no love,
Mm.
right? Whether they knew it or not, they led people to a place where there's no love. And man, I say this like as someone with unbelievable love for Yogananda. And so what can I say? Love and family and co-creation and all this, it isn't addressed in the idea of meditation, right? Still, the purpose, even in his way of viewing things as just a microcosm, is meditate, free yourself of all karma, get off the wheel of reincarnation, because this world is suffering, right? Or even the prevailing Buddhist ideologies that like this world is suffering and we need to, rise above this world and get off the wheel of reincarnation. Like this is the commonly taught belief that hundreds of million or maybe billions of people believe in Buddhism or Hinduism. Kind of the same idea is this world is imperfect and full of suffering, therefore we need to escape it. But it doesn't address the very clear question as to why is this world so full of suffering in the beginning? It's like, why is everything so bad that I need to permanently escape it? Um, and it's bad because we have lived in such a way that has created these conditions. God didn't create the world this way from the beginning. It was perfect, and perpetual joy was our inheritance, right? Perpetual joy and ever increasing love were the purpose and function of everything. That was what we were supposed to experience. Then we, at some point in our history, messed that up. So then we can't blame creation itself as this imperfect thing that needs to be escaped, right? Through arduous lifetimes of meditation. Rather, why can't I begin taking a piece of this land, turning it into a paradise, raising my family with love, and doing the same? So now I've gotten rid of the conditions of this suffering world that I need to escape, right? I no longer, why do I need to escape this world if the conditions for suffering don't exist? Right? I've addressed this at the root. And Anastasia talks about reincarnation and all this. She talks about reincarnating on your kin's domain. I mean, even this is a practical idea for billions of people around the world. Like Buddhism talks about how do you gain a more favorable life next time? Many, many people will do specific actions to try to win themselves a better reincarnation. This isn't some foreign idea to, a large part of humanity. Maybe to the Western mind, we don't think about our next life. But there is the idea that you can influence the circumstance of your next life. And you would have to imagine, I believe clearly, know this is true. And I don't believe it. I know it's true. So it's like, well, what if I created, and I'm going way off the deep end, but I'm just going to go there because I'm feeling it. Anastasia talks about, God created man immortal. And to experience your immortality, three conditions need to be realized. She said, one, man needs to create a space from his dream to which he aspires, right? That space is your kin's domain, your space of love. I've created this place. I aspire to this place. I love this place. One. Number two, at least one person on the earth needs to think of you with love. So the idea is that if a person thinks of you with love, they draw your spirit to the earth because that loving power is a magnetic positive force. That's number two. Third condition for immortality is when a person is going to pass away, they don't admit the thought of death, but they visualize life anew in this space that they have aspired to. So, in the moment of your transition, you're not thinking of some bleak void or you're in
Mm.
fear. You're in your garden, this place that you've spent a vast majority of your life, or at least a very significant emotional portion of your life, in this paradise of your own creation. And you're dreaming of life again in this place, in this space. Now, with these three things, you can reincarnate there in a future generation of your family, right? And she says the souls of the departed ancestors of this family will be above this kin's domain like guardian angels, right? And then she says in roughly three generations, they'll come back. So imagine you create this place, you planted a cedar when you were 29. You come a couple hundred years later, couple however many decades later, generations, and now this cedar is 300 years old. But you recognize that you planted that. It's yours. You did that, right? And now you are reincarnating into a world where the conditions for suffering and all this violence and all this horrible things don't exist. Why do I need to escape this material plane? Is the material plane something that needs to be escaped? Even in Christianity, the idea is that, prevailing Christianity, not the true Christianity, the deeper aspects of it, as you would know, but is that, you know, I admit Jesus is my savior. I go to heaven forever and I never come back here. Why is this place so miserable that we all need to escape it permanently? That seems like how could our loving Father, we say he's so loving and wonderful, create this place that's going to be endless suffering for us? Those two ideas don't,
Mm.
right? They don't. You can't reconcile those things.
No.
Endless eternal suffering. yet it was destined for us by our, as you were saying, right? Like in the earlier, that like you're an imbecile slave thing and you just have to accept eternal suffering as your inheritance. And it's like, couldn't be further from the truth. You could actually reincarnate in successively more perfect and happy versions of yourself indefinitely. We don't know the limits of how far that could go, but there is theoretically no limit. And uh, and so these are again, maybe some of these ideas sound far out, but reincarnation is accepted as a reality by billions of people, and many of them try to actively influence it. Even, it was in Christianity, it was removed. There are references to reincarnation in the Bible. I could very easily share some of those,
Hmm.
but that's the idea. And so that all of this doesn't come like you didn't gain that power to reincarnate in that way from meditation and what Anastasia is sharing, right? To get back to that idea. You meditate on your kin's domain, it's fantastic, but it isn't the sole requirement for this kind of eternal peace, right? And it's a thing that is that was a long tangent to talk about meditation. It's something that's accessible to everyone. Anyone can get a piece of land and begin creating this beautiful paradise for themselves and doing that with their own hands. And you don't even need to read the books. You can hear the idea of the Kin's domain, 2.5 acres, whatever. There's many people who'll join the communities in Russia. They like attend an event there, go to a festival or something, decide they want to live there, and then they like read the books later, but they've already started creating their beautiful. It's the fact that you're doing this thing,
Hmm.
right? You will learn from experience, and it's just practical and it's accessible. Not everyone's gonna get rid of all their karma through deep, arduous meditation for a long time, but everyone can plant a garden. And this is and we can really make this world better and get rid of the conditions that have caused us all of this suffering.
That was so well said. Thank you so much for expanding on that in that way. And it's so true that the common religious and even spiritual dogma, for lack of a better term, is all about escapist practices. Your heaven is
New
some
Age
far off this,
ascension
right, some
5D
far off distant
thing,
space. Yes, exactly. The aliens are going to
the
come get us
rapture.
or whatever.
Mhm.
However you want to describe it, it's all about escaping what's here, and instead of what meditation could and should be, which is about bringing you back into this present experience,
Yeah,
not escaping from it. So
right.
I see like two sort of angles on, and probably why Anastasia mentioned that they don't realize that they're teaching leading to a place with no love, because
No
if
love.
you're imbuing that practice with the love, then you can't help but come back into this physical experience and love more deeply with everything that you're finding. So
Yeah,
that's why I love using the analogy of the tree as in the ringing cedar as a great example, because the ringing cedar is growing its branches high. That's the, if we have a meditation practice, if we're reaching for the spiritual, the non-physical spaces, there's nothing wrong with that. But don't forget to grow those roots down deep. And that's
yeah,
what Anastasia is truly teaching, is she's focusing more on those grounding, connecting practices that bring you grounded into this physical experience,
right.
coming back to that. And so she doesn't need to mention meditation specifically, because working in the garden is a meditation.
Yeah,
Doing all these things where you're connecting with the animals and your family and everyone all around, you are being so present that you're imbuing that love into this experience, and you're ringing like a ringing cedar. You're
yeah,
vibrating that emission of love consistently. But if our
right.
focus is only on reaching up and meditation and forgetting about what's happening all around, well, then I'm apt to just topple over. I have no stability. I have
Yeah,
no grounding within this experience. So it's
right.
balance is key.
Yeah, her grandfather says, I think in the first book that if you have both feet entirely on one side, then you are not stable, right? We need to be in the spiritual world and the physical world, but it's also the idea of like, you know, I meditate and like I've spent a long time doing this, and it's like, but that alone, but then how do I go out and live my life? What am I
Exactly.
manifesting around me? Or what is this world continuing to develop into? Or how is my family living? Maybe I say I'm spiritual, but then I raise, I haven't had kids yet, and I don't cast judgment on anyone, right? We're all here. And I'm saying, I would feel a sense of guilt. Like if I have to raise you in a city and there's crime around the corner and there's drug dealers and stuff, it's scary and it's like it sucks and I know what that's like and I'm perpetuating the cycle whether I know it or not. What am I, so like maybe I take this wisdom and this purity and peace and calmness I've gained in meditation and I apply it in this way that, really has more tangible results. And it's like, I'm not going to have a space of love even if I just sit and meditate in my apartment either, right? Like I need to go out and create this place, or I really need to go out and do something. And it's everyone can do this, and it's like everyone can build this beautiful kind of space, wherever they are. And I say that as a, like literal, I'm calling myself a disciple of this man, and I say this with the most love and respect to him. But I just think him and many other people didn't know whether they knew it or not. As Anastasia's grandfather said, they led people to a place where there was no love. Like, what is the purpose of man and woman coming together? How does that manifest in the highest way? What can we do? How can we give birth to children more perfect than ourselves? All these questions are very practical. And, meditation alone won't take us to a world filled with paradise gardens, right? And maybe there's a person who never meditates once, but their domain is profoundly beautiful.
Right.
And it's like they have that beauty within them anyway, and they're manifesting it. So, very valuable practice, very good in many ways, but it's not the only thing. And we don't need to escape this world. God didn't create it as a prison or like a school, as if I knew nothing, or I don't know, as some place that needs to be run away from. It's a place that can be perfected, and it is heaven. Why would this be the last place that God put us if it wasn't meant to be the best place? You know what I mean?
Yes.
I just have to say.
Very well said. Thank you for going into all of that. That was awesome.
Thank you, man. You're awesome.
Thanks, man. Yeah, well, I know I would love to continue. I mean,
Let's do it.
yeah, I see like the development of jumping into more topics around this, and I'd love to even break down the Ringing Cedar series on a more practical level and kind of go through it bit by bit. So I'm sure this won't be the last conversation that we have around this.
I'd love to come back, man.
That would be awesome. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm able to go deeper with you than I'm able to with some other people because you're just at that level. So it's fun. And I appreciate the audience for sticking with me at this point.
oh,
I try to bring the ideas back to the center, but it's fun to go on the things with you.
it's so much fun. It's a great flow. And yes, everyone in the chat is just very excited about the conversations we're having and everything's being presented here. So again, just thank
Thanks,
you for that.
everybody.
So yeah, just wanted to give you an opportunity to see is there anything, any topic or any area that you'd love to expand upon, anything from the series itself to Anastasia Foundation and upcoming projects, anything that you want to touch on, now would be a great time.
Yeah, I mean, if any of this interests you, I'm only approximating what Anastasia and her grandfathers and all these great people say in the books. I would highly encourage you to have your own experience with the books and take them in with an open heart and an open mind. I'd highly, highly suggest that. If any of this resonates with you at all, please go read the books and have that conversation with Anastasia in your heart. You know what I mean? You'll get it a lot more from there than you'll get it from me. That's for sure. So that's one thing. Anastasia.foundation/books. You can get the PDFs. If you want a few physical copies, we've got the first three books, ringingcedarsbooks.com. If you want to connect with our community, Anastasia.foundation. That's the whole URL, Anastasia.foundation. Event schedule, sign up on our email list. We're doing events all over the place, online, in person, and just continuing to grow. But the last thing I'll say is like, yeah, read the books and don't give up on the beautiful dreams that you have in your heart. You are powerful. You are a creator. God and life wants to see your dreams materialized, and just go forward and be bold and don't give up. And the world is enriched by your presence and your lack of quitting. You know what I mean? The fact that your soul can dream in such a beautiful way despite the conditions of this world is a testament to the power of the human spirit. And it's just, if you've listened this far, then this must be interesting, and you probably are a person who has a lot to give to the world. So never be discouraged. Take as much time as you need. Go forward. Maybe you get smacked down, but you get back up. So I just want to say, and I feel that way all the time. So just you're powerful, you're beautiful, and we can all make this world a much better place for ourselves and the people around us and our descendants. And why shouldn't we? We are the ones who are tasked with this, and it's a choice. And just go forward and be bold.
Beautifully said, brother. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'd echo that completely and just say that you can find the link. I mean, it's just Anastasia.foundation, so real easy to remember, but that link is in the
Yep.
description where you can find links to all of her spaces, their Telegram groups, ways to get involved with events and things. I'd highly recommend checking them out. They do a new moon call. So every new moon there's a earthwide call. I've
Hmm.
joined the past few. I missed the last one, but I've joined
Hmm.
a few others, and they've been wonderful opportunities to connect with others in the space. And Gabriel's typically there on those, so that's always a joy
I
to get to
host
speak with.
those particular new moon calls. Yeah, that's the international community call.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and then find out if there are any other groups in your area, and if they're not, maybe you're
Maybe you're
ready
the
to
one
start
to
one.
start one.
Yep,
Yep. And that's what I'm saying. It's like come in, meet other readers, start something up because this is all us. We facilitate communication, but we are not the sole, it's all of us that are part of making this. So
awesome,
you are more powerful than you think. Go and be bold. And if you want to start a book club, you want to start a group, do it. And you know what? You're going to be awesome at it. You know what I'm saying? Like it takes all of us. Someone has to act. If there isn't a settlement in your place, maybe you're the one to start. You know what I
absolutely.
mean? And we are the pioneers, and we have a lot more power than we think.
Absolutely. Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks again, brother, for coming on today and for sharing your heart in this way and just for your tireless dedication. Like I was talking with Gabriel and he he of course they do accept donations, and if you do find yourself wanting to support this mission and everything that they're doing, that's a great way to help support buying the books, or they're going to be having cedar oil available
Yeah,
not too long too, which
SiberianCedarOil.com,
which is pretty
handmade
exciting.
Siberian cedar oil. Yep.
Yeah. So there are lots of ways you can support that way, but just note that this man is giving so much of his own personal finances and everything into this project. That's how much he believes in it, and I can get behind that 100% because this is a profoundly life-changing read, an experience that you can't describe any other way. And
Mm,
to get others connected in that space is just it's such a gift. So again, thank you, brother, for all the work that you're doing, and it's
my
our
honor.
honor, our pleasure to be here with you in that. And please don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything we can do to help support that.
Deep, deep gratitude, brother. This is my whole reason for being. So I give all I can.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, much love, and thanks everybody
Bye,
for
everyone.
being. Yeah, thanks everybody for being here today, and yeah, we're gonna close out for now, but I'm sure this won't be the last conversation on the topic. So stay tuned for more, and hope everyone has a